In today's video, I'm going to cover the Zinger Fletchings. They're basically a 3D printed fletch out of a softer material, so it's not like that rigid, hard 3D printed material. It's soft, it's squishy, pliable, and it's intended to be able to slide over the top of your arrow shaft so you can basically place it wherever you want to on the shaft. It's an alternative to vanes. It basically, if you look at alternatives, here would be like your standard vaned arrow. And here would be like an arrow that I did my modification with the fobs, so that again I have an interference fit. So it's the same kind of concept, except you don't have to do the extra work that I went through. When you go to place an order, you would basically plug in what your arrow diameter is, the outer diameter, which you can find off the arrow manufacturer's website, or you can measure it. And then they would size and print these to be able to get the appropriate interference fit onto that arrow shaft. So the thought process is, when you get a pass through on an animal, it's squishy enough that if it does stay on, it's not going to impede penetration, but if it does pop off, it's not that big of a deal either. On the website, they offer these in both 3-fin and 4-fin configurations with just kind of a standard fin size. And just kind of looking at the surface area, I also made a custom request for a 6-fletch version just to boost up that surface area a little bit. So to give you guys a comparison, the 3-fletch one has about 2.1 square inches of surface area. The 4-fin version has about 2.6, and the 6-fin one has about 3.6 square inches of surface area. How does that compare to something like a blazer? 3-fletch blazer, a little bit over 4 square inches. So that just gives you a little bit of a comparison. Now, although the total surface area is a little bit less than your standard vane configurations, so is the weight. So as you can see, the 4-fin versions range from about 12 to 12.5 grains. And the 6-fin versions range from about 14 to 16.5 grains. Whereas most of your standard vanes are going to be in the 6 to 8 grains per vane. 4-fletch with a 7-grain vane, you're looking at about 28 grains there total. Now when I look up close to the quality of these parts, you can definitely tell they're 3D printed. You can see the layer lines. The layer lines go perpendicular to the direction of the arrow. There's probably a little bit of additional turbulence that's maybe created by that surface being perpendicular, as opposed to having the layer lines run with the direction of travel of the arrow. I did do a lot of testing, and I'll kind of dive into the test results of what I got. First, we'll go over the spin testing, because these things can be printed in either 1 degree, 3 degree, or 6 degree offset. Then I'll do a noise comparison, where I compare the noise of the Zingers versus other vane configurations and fobs. And then we'll also talk about Broadhead Flight. So in these first video clips here, I am testing just field points. They're going to spin a little bit quicker and more easily than Broadheads would. I'm starting with a right-hand rotation and then switching to a left-hand rotation. And you can see the left hand gets that arrow spinning a little bit faster. My bow naturally casts the arrows counterclockwise, so left hand, just because of the way the string is rotated and the way the serving is tied on. But you can see that when you get to that 6-fin, 6 degree, it really overpowers that natural rotation very rapidly out of the bow. And then when you get to the 6 degree, 6-fin left-hand version, it's just spinning like a top. And so after we test the field points, I'm going to move over to Broadhead Testing, where I do the testing with both the compact S125 from Ironwell and also the wide cut, which is a little bit bigger surface area model. And with the 3 degree right hand, you can tell that it's like almost halfway to the target before that arrow even really starts spinning. And then once we get to the 6 degree offset, it starts to overpower it a little bit more quickly. With both broadheads, the wide cut, of course, spinning a little bit more slowly than the compact, but they're both spinning pretty quickly. And then once you get to the 6-fin, again, it overpowers that natural rotation pretty rapidly right out of the bow. And you can start to get a feel for kind of arrow flight too with these broadheads out of a well-tuned bow. So we'll switch over to the left hand and jump right to 6 degree. You can tell there's really rapid rotation right out of the bow for both heads. And then when we jump to the 6-fin 6 degree, again, it's spinning like a top. And I would almost argue it's past the point of diminishing returns, where I'm not really gaining that much extra stability with the 6-fin 6 degree, and I'm actually losing penetration. So I did a test into fresh foam with those broadheads, exactly the same, just with the low spin version versus a high spin version. And the low spin version actually penetrated almost 16% further into that clean foam, with all else being equal. Now that doesn't mean that you should go out and shoot straight fletch with all your broadheads. There's still an advantage for stability with getting some spin, but if you get past a certain point, you're not really gaining that much in extra stability. You might be losing some penetration because of that energy that's taken away from the system to create the spin, and also it's energy dumped upon stopping once it hits the target or hits the ribs on an animal, something like that. You're going to have to test to find out where that limit is for yourself. And as for the Broadhead Flight itself, you could see probably in some of those clips, if you looked really closely, that occasionally there'd be a little bit of a wag one way or the other. It seemed like for the most part they flew pretty well, but occasionally I get an arrow that would just have a little bit of a wiggle. And when you see it kind of rotate one way or the other in that slow motion, that's basically what that is. It's just like a little wiggle in flight. Fort Fletch heat was definitely the quietest of the bunch, but apart from that, there wasn't really a whole lot of difference. I tried testing some crosswinds as well to see if there's any difference between vanes or the various style of zingers. And I tell you what, every time I try and do a test like this, the wind always affects me and my hold more than it does the actual arrow. So until I'm able to get testing like this done out of, shooting out of a ground blind or a barn or something, I wasn't able to gather any really strong signals one way or the other. In terms of flight and drag, this is a grouping at 80 yards with the top two arrows being 4 Fletch heat, the middle two being 3 Fletch blazers, and the bottom two being the 6-degree offset. What's interesting here is that the 4 Fletch heat are actually the heaviest configuration here, yet they hit the highest. And by contrast, the 6-degree offset were the lightest of the bunch, but they hit the lowest consistently at 80 yards. With the 4-fin versions, it didn't seem like there was much of a significant difference in the height of the group at those longer distances. So it seems like there's similar drag between some of those vane configurations and the 4-fin versions, at least to the best of my shooting abilities. So what are my thoughts in conclusion? Well, in general, if I had to give just kind of a global opinion on anything fletching related, the token answer is that you should test with your setup, with your shooting form, with your broadheads you intend on hunting with, and really try and figure out what works the best for you. I can't tell you what's going to work the best for your system. I would say if you got a well-tuned setup, you're a pretty good shot, and you're shooting small, compact, either fixed blades or mechanicals, it's definitely a viable option. It comes down to other things like how well does it particularly shoot for you in comparison to other options, and if you like some of the other advantages like just being able to interference fit the fletching onto your shaft versus going through the process of fletching arrows more traditionally. So if you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.